Welcome to the Fulcrum Capacity Podcast. Today we have Ann, who is the founder and CEO of Common Fibers, a vertically integrated carbon fiber manufacturing shop in the Seattle area. They can machine the molds, they can design the parts, they can produce them, they can finish them, and they'll send them to you completely finished for whatever you need to use them for. Welcome, Ann.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Tell me about your business. Tell me what you guys do. Describe your shop. How does it look? What is your daily life like?
So daily life is arriving with my two very large Rottweilers to our 20,000 square foot facility. We have 3 different buildings for 3 different departments. One 10,000 square foot building is for laying up, so the making of the parts, where all of our molds are. And then we have another 10,000 square foot building is where we machine the plugs on our 3 CNC machines. The plugs are what we make the molds off of, so they look like the part. And then we make the molds, and then they come back to layup. We make the parts, and then they go into our finish department, which we have 3 automotive paint booths that we can paint the parts, we can paint the molds, do all the finish work, so that when you come to us with an idea or a design, we can take that and move it through the entire process, like you said, to a completed part that you can deliver straight to your customer.
So there's a lot of people, myself included, that aren't super familiar with carbon fiber manufacturing. Mm-hmm. Tell me about it. How did you get into it? What is like the science behind it? How are things actually made? Why is it awesome? Give us the whole spiel.
Yeah. So carbon fiber has been around for a long time. It's a material that's very lightweight and very strong. And so applications of it, started with, say, Formula One cars or Boeing airplanes, things that were typically out of reach for most people. You might see them on TV or hear about them in the news. And because of the properties of carbon fiber, they've been more and more integrated into everyday life, from automotive efficiency to consumer goods. Everybody wants things to be lighter weight, stronger, last longer. So carbon fiber is definitely the material for that. It comes on a roll like you would see a dart of fabric at Joann Fabrics or something. It's soft, it's pliable. You take that material and put it into a mold to make whatever type of shape that you want. So we make aerospace parts, we make automotive parts, we make scooters, we make drones, all kinds of different things, all with these molds. You lay the carbon fiber into it. You add resin to it. The resin is what holds the fabric shape. So once it cures, it comes out of the mold. It's shaped into whatever form that you wanted. And then you trim it, you glue stuff together. You can make complex assemblies. It's really a versatile material because you can add whatever you want to that mold. It could be carbon fiber, it could be fiberglass, it could be Kevlar. You can change the orientation of the carbon fiber as you put it in to make it stronger in this way or that way. So it's really a conformable material in lots of different ways. And that's why it's becoming more and more used, is that as the applications grow and the processing changes to allow you to do new things, it's being applied more and more. And that's what we're finding, is more and more people reach out to us and it's like, oh, I never thought we could make something like that out of carbon fiber, but we'll figure it out. And we do. And sometimes you'll have to integrate other technologies like 3D printing into it, machining of typical metals, things that you couldn't make out of carbon fiber, but you can put the two together and make some really cool things.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're making these molds yourself almost always?
Yes, we do. So if you were to come to us with a design for, say, car fender, we will start with that fender, whether it's drawn on a napkin, it's handed to us, we have a CAD model. We take that fender, look at it, see if the geometries make sense. Sometimes we'll have to make modifications if there's something that undercuts, because if the mold's like this and it undercuts, when you try to pull the part out, you can't get it out. So the mold might have to be multiple pieces. So we do a lot of design for manufacturing to make sure, like, okay, this is something that we can do. This is how we propose to do it. For us, we use tons of different processing techniques and different mold making techniques, which allows us to not kind of pigeonhole you into like, oh, you have to have an aluminum mold or you have to have a steel mold. You have to make 10,000 parts. It's no, okay, these are your requirements. Okay, we can make this type of mold, which will last this long. It might be a cheaper option. And then once we decide with you what that type of mold makes the most sense, we can do it all in-house. So typically, say for like a fender, we would 3D scan the fender or have CAD for it, stick it on the CNC with foam. So we typically machine like a 15-pound foam on our big CNCs that will cut the shape basically of the part. And then we coat it. We call it candy coating. We add all kinds of stuff to it, sand it, polish it, and then we pull a mold off of that. So, typically we do all of our tooling in-house unless it's some massive steel machined mold that we just don't have capacity for currently. But
So this is a pretty young industry. You just figured all this stuff out a little bit at a time, made a lot of mistakes, learned a lot of stuff, and developed a working manufacturing facility to make this type of stuff.
Yeah, we have. So composites is a very like closed industry. People have a lot of trade secrets that they don't want to share. So it's a lot of trial and error and just figuring out how to do things.
Because it's so early stage, like, is that why, or just something about the culture?
I think because of its background being mostly in like aerospace, the aerospace industry in general is pretty like closed door, which makes sense. Yeah. But that just means that there isn't a lot of information on how to do things. And because it is new, also, there aren't giant guidebooks on how to machine carbon fiber or how the properties of carbon fiber. Like a block of aluminum is the same no matter which way you rotate that block of aluminum. You know, you push on it this way, it's all going to read the same mechanical like properties. But carbon fiber is not like that. So you typically have to build parts, break parts, try a whole bunch of stuff before you like get the right thing. So we have really spent the last like 10 years trying to figure out ways of doing things ourselves because there aren't people out there who really want to help. I think it's changing a little bit now as the industry grows and the applications are there. There's a lot of small companies starting and like we're very much open book on the things that we can be. There's certain obviously customers that we can't share anything about, but for the ones that we can, like, you know, we have blog posts, we have Instagram pro tip Tuesdays that are like, hey, this is how you should do this to try to help the industry. Because in the end, the more uses of carbon fiber there are, the bigger the presence, the more people know about it. It benefits the whole industry. So instead of shutting people out, we're trying to help people use carbon fiber as much as possible.
And is that how you think about not just the industry, but like the stuff you do in general as non-zero sum, that the market is so young and there's so many applications for this that if you just expand the market by 100x, everybody benefits? Is that imbued in the philosophy of how you are as a company?
Yeah, I think so. I think for us, we are very much open book, open door. Let's talk about how we do everything. Everybody in the shop knows how to do every process, not just you're the tooling guy or you're the layup guy or the finish guy. Everybody needs to know everything so that when something goes wrong, you can pass that information along and understand why that goes wrong or that issue is affecting 10 people down the line. And as we grow and as the industry grows, I really do believe that the more information that we can have out there, the better for everybody. And, you know, obviously there's things that we have to keep close to our chest too, as we're developing new technologies that haven't been used before. But once we have the applications figured out and the processes, like, I'm sure we would be open to sharing with people that are growing as well. We have a loyal customer base that I feel like, we can share. So, yeah.
So I've been to a lot of shops that are CNC shops, sheet metal shops, plastic injection molding. I've heard a lot of people say that they want that effect that you have, which is that people are cross-trained, they know how to do everything. But there's a lot of resistance. Like culturally, that's just something that a lot of people don't want to do. They want to get really comfortable getting good at one thing. How do you think you guys have, created that for yourselves where people just do that?
Yeah. I think the history of our business has sort of led to that being our culture. We 8 years ago were just making custom stuff. So we had our employees were all, say, craftsmen. They wanted to come in and make really cool things. And in order to make really cool things, everybody sort of has to be on the same page of thinking through the entire process together and helping each other. And being a small team also helps with that. And that sort of culture from 8 years ago has led into the culture of our business today. It definitely leads to complications sometimes of like resource management. Okay, well, if everybody can do everything, who's doing what? And trying to figure out we're going to move this person from this department today to this one because of, capacity needs and stuff. And to be honest, Fulcrum has very much helped with that of like, oh, we have a lot of work in this department. Cool. We'll shift everybody over there. But I think the custom one-off projects has definitely led to that more like craftsman, crafty, DIY type of employee. And we're in a transition point of, do we keep that or do we move towards more production, which we have been leaning towards, but we have so much different production that it still feels kind of craftsman-y, but we're making the same thing, every day or whatever. So, I think it's a cultural thing that just started with our history.
How do you balance that out? Not just the cultural part, but everybody who can get stuff done and makes custom things, everybody wants them to make more of that, right? But you have to deliver efficiencies and cost performance at that point in time. Is that something that's hard to balance between, you're prototyping or doing some R&D stuff where it's all very abstract to, okay, we need 10,000 of these for a production run of some device or thing. Do you think about that differently or how do you have that tension?
I don't think we do, actually. I think for us, we approach every project, whether it's making one or making 100 or 1,000, the same. All of the engineering and the thought needs to happen up front. And that thought process is the same for making one as it is making 10,000. We might think more on assembly fixtures or trim guides or things that can improve efficiency over larger batches. But that's a little later in the process. We still have to make the first one of that batch of 10,000. So the thinking that is involved with making that first part qualifier is very much the same. And then as you start to produce that thing over and over again, you start to see where there are more process improvements, but the beginning is very much the same thing, I would say.
When we talked earlier, you said something that really stuck with me, which was that you learn painfully that once something is broken or is defective, whether it's a part or a process, investing a lot of time, succumbing to the sunk cost fallacy and trying to fix it, you just put so many resources and it never actually really gets better. How did you learn that? And how has it been beneficial for you to adopt that as a philosophy?
We, I would say, are stubborn. And it's taken a long time to learn to reduce the amount of hope that you have for any given item or person. And It's taken years to learn that of, okay, cut your losses as soon as possible. Something doesn't look quite right, just stop. Like, let's talk about it. You know, do the Toyota, hey, I have an issue. Let's talk about it right now before it progresses down the line. It took, like I said, it took so many years to get to that point because we always had hope and we wanted to make sure that, I think, again, when we're doing one of something, you're more likely to put more time into that one of something. Now that we're doing more production, I think it's easier for us to see the benefits of like, oh, okay, we need to make 1,000 of these. Like this first batch of 10, let's learn a lot and cut it right then. Like, let's stop doing that. Let's change this pattern. Let's do something different. But it's taken many years and lots of late nights, let's huddle together. Let's figure this out. Let's put tens of hundreds of hours into like making this one thing work, to learn to just, cut your losses and say, okay, let's start over. That didn't work. Let's learn now, iterate fast. And I think that's where we are now is just, I think we, like the term, measure twice, cut once. Our motto is think twice, act quickly. And we do very much live by that. Like, let's all put our minds together really fast, think about it, and then move quickly, see what happens. Okay, iterate. Let's do that again really fast, instead of dragging ourselves through the mud of, oh, we just really need this one thing to work. And I think it's been 10 years of learning that.
And for background, which I know, but other people don't,
right.
You work with your husband, who you met building super high mileage cars in college, started this business together, have 2 giant dogs together. Tell me about the backstory of how you met and how you worked together and how much of that's translated, like working on creating a prototype car together as an engineering project. Has any of that translated into business? What were some useful parts? What were some parts that helped you?
Yeah, I think, so we met 14 years ago, my freshman year of college. He was a sophomore. He was the president of the Super Mileage Club. I met them or the club at an engineering club turnout, like, hey, come check out all of these campus clubs. And on their little whiteboard, it said, we need a mold making, or like, we're making a new car and we don't know how to do this. I was like, oh, I know how to do that. I grew up building boats with my family and their business, and part of building boats is building molds. So I quickly signed myself up because I knew how to do that. And we spent the next, say, 6 months building a mold and working 40 hours a week up at the hangar at Cal Poly, sand and Bondo, playing with foam, trying to get things to work. And in being together for 40 hours a week, working through problems, we learned that we worked really well together. And that all of that time has translated probably the most to our business success of being able to work together and pull a team together and work through problems as a group. And the time of Super Mileage, we basically learned all of that. You don't necessarily learn that sitting in a class. You learn that by working on a team and working on these different projects. So I would owe Common Fibers to our Super Mileage time any day. We still work together every day and it works out, I think, because we started our relationship with that problem solving skill set and working through things together. And we don't have a business background, but because we've been able to figure out how to work together and work on problem solving and figuring things out, that transitioned well to Common Fibers and just being determined to figure it out and make it work and learn as we go and iterate quickly. Yeah.
And as you said before, no huge conflicts between the two of you in business. That's rare.
It is rare. As we had talked about, I feel like everybody always wonders, how the heck can you be with this person 24/7 and work together and have a life together and all of these things? And I just really feel like there is nobody else that I would rather be doing this with. And I really hope for everybody else that you find someone that you want to be with that much. And, we don't work elbow to elbow every day anymore. We obviously talk a lot throughout the day and planning and big picture things, but we aren't together 24/7. So it's worked really well. And I think our skill sets are different enough that we don't step on each other's toes, and that, we have our various departments and things that he's better at and I'm better at. And we know where our skill set lies and can help support each other in those ways.
So if we go back in time, you worked together for 3 years on this super mileage project. And then a year after that, started this business together. No one's showing you what to do. The material is fairly unknown or not as widely popularized as it is now. You don't know much about manufacturing or business. Why start the business? And how was it like? And how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah. So being poor college students, Gabe and I were driving from school back to home in Seattle, and we made this giant list of things that we could make out of carbon fiber. We knew from super mileage how to make flat things and how to make molded things.
And you were convinced that carbon fiber was valuable. Like you knew that it was going to be a big thing.
Yeah, I think it was the right transition point from it being wholly aerospace and Formula One to automotive efficiency. Toyota wants to start using it. Tesla's using it more. It was just sort of fortuitous timing, I think, that not only was the industry changing, but we also were part of this club, and Cal Poly was really pushing composites at the time. And I'm materials engineering, so learning about materials, and the new focus was composites. And so I think that kind of confluence of things led to okay, we really need to be doing something out of carbon fiber. And I don't know what that is yet, but that seems like the way to go. Gabe knew he didn't want to work for a big Fortune 500 company. He needed the freedom and the flexibility to move fast and to use his brain. And so we knew that we just needed to figure something out as our next steps after college. And we accidentally made a hinge out of carbon fiber. We were playing with fire and torches, and we happened to burn some carbon fiber and realized that we could make this hard thing flexible again. And on this list that I just mentioned of all these things that we thought we could make out of carbon fiber, a lot of them needed to bend and fold, say a laptop case, or those little 3-foldy iPad cases at the time were a big deal. So we're okay, well, how could we do that? And carbon fiber typically doesn't like to have holes poked into it. You reduce the strength by doing that. You could glue something on, but having an integrated hinge would be really cool. So we were trying to figure out how to do that. We both worked at the student shop at the time and had access to acetylene torches and lasers and all kinds of cool things, and just started playing around, and we figured out how to make carbon fiber fold again. After being formed into a shape. And so we have 2 patents on a carbon fiber hinge. And, we were thinking, okay, we figured this out. We got these patents. How do we get that out into the world? And, most people, if you walk up to them and say, hey, I invented a carbon fiber hinge, they'd be like, cool, okay, that's great. I don't know what that is. Or you picture something like a door hinge or a piano hinge just made out of carbon fiber, which people still might not know what carbon fiber is. So Kickstarter was big at the time in 2014. So we were like, okay, well, what could we make that would be a tangible example of this carbon fiber hinge that we've invented? And we decided upon wallets. Everybody uses wallets. It's something that, you carry around a lot. So you potentially would be looking at some design for something and like take out your wallet. I don't know what we were thinking. We're really hopeful that somebody would like see the technology and be like, cool, I can use that somewhere. So we did a Kickstarter for wallets. We raised, I think it was $165,000 in a month. We sold 3,000 wallets. And had to jump into the manufacturing space and the lifestyle space, which were two things that we weren't necessarily thinking we would jump right into. We were still living in our college house. We had our roommates living with us, and we had to, for several months, just literally assemble wallets. We all sat there on the couch watching movies and multiple series of TV shows, just hand assembling all of these wallets together. And that is honestly how Common Fibers started, was making these wallets on the couch in our college house. And after Kickstarter, we kept making wallets. We opened an e-commerce site. Wallets kept selling. We kept making more of them. We changed designs. Like, we became a lifestyle brand, which for both of us being engineers was not what we had necessarily intended. But wallets made enough money to move to our little 1,000 square foot roll-up garage in Seattle, manufacturing space. And we did that for like a year and a half or 2 years of just assembling wallets. We really got that process down. We did figure out a lot of learnings that we use even today on manufacturing processes and efficiencies and production lines. What does that look like? How do we train someone? And like all of those techniques are still applicable to the things we do today. We just weren't expecting to do it with wallets first.
Sure.
And then we started getting phone calls of, oh, you do carbon fiber? I remember you from college. Can you make this thing out of carbon fiber for me? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. We'll be the yes men and figure it out. Like, we'll do whatever it takes. And we worked really hard for the next 2 or 3 years of just like, how many of these one-off projects can we figure out and do as quickly as possible, hit deadlines, don't really care about our cost, like just word of mouth. We want to make sure people like us, that we're delivering. And we made a name for ourselves in the carbon fiber space, at least in the Seattle/Cal Poly area. And worked really hard on those custom things. But it at least got us back into engineering and automotive racing and the things that we were more passionate about. Still made wallets, but
Still make wallets today.
Still make wallets today. We have a little like 500 square foot office that we make wallets in out of the whole facility. It's very much becoming less and less of what we do. We're actually transitioning our website to, it's just merch. You are here because you like Common Fibers and you want want a wallet, but it's not what we do.
Right.
We are a fabrication shop now. And it's been a journey from wallets to production carbon fiber manufacturing.
And so through that process of doing all these one-off projects, you buy a vertical machining center, you buy some other really large format CNC machine to be able to cut these large foam things or make molds out of them, like, and then learn how to program the machine and write G code and whatever else it is. Like, what does that look like? It's just like, all right, we're going to buy a $100,000 machine to do this one project, or what's that process of transitioning feel like?
It's definitely been interesting. So we moved from the 1,000 square foot shop into a 6,000 square foot shop in downtown Seattle, basically. And in that move, we knew that we wanted to be able to make our own molds.
Why?
Mostly because of customer need, I would say. That it was a skill set that we had. And two, having a customer reach out and planning for a different shop to deliver something to us on time, to deliver them something on time. It just made sense for us to do it. That, being vertically integrated and being able to do the whole process was of benefit. And we saw that very early, especially because the process of making carbon fiber is very shop dependent. Like, I know what I want in a mold. I know how much flange and how much offsets and all of these different things. So having a customer tell somebody else that they want a mold and then receiving that mold, it might not work for our process or be less cost effective because we have to do something tricky that we don't normally do to use those molds. And I mean, even today we have hand-me-down molds and none of our techs like to use them. Nobody wants to work on those projects because it's just not ours. It's not set up for how we do things. And so, yeah, I think that knowing that we wanted to be able to do tooling, we needed a CNC. We first bought, I think it was like a Shapeco little 2 foot by 2 foot CNC. It was like a Dremel on a computer head, right? And we made our first mold on that. It was like $200 off of Craigslist or something. And we still use that mold today from almost 8 or 9 years ago off of this little machine. We made it work. And so after knowing that we could do it on this little tiny thing, when we got more space, we knew, okay, let's get a bigger CNC. So we got a 4x8 CNC that's like 12 inches of Z height, that we knew we could machine blocks of foam, stack them up, make things. So that was sort of the okay, we're going to make tooling, therefore we need this CNC machine. And we knew, okay, we can only make 4x8 things at the time. And so, we would take on jobs that were within that footprint. And we kept just sort of, I'll call it bootstrapping our way into bigger and bigger things until we moved to our new shop. I think it was probably about 2 years ago now, and had more space and was like, okay, well, we're starting to get into designing cars. Okay, well, cars a lot bigger than just 4x8 feet, right? And so we got a bigger CNC that's 5-axis, so we can do 5-axis machining, and it has a 3-foot Z envelope. So it's sort of just been customer demand that has sort of led us to making these decisions. Buying a piece of equipment and moving set you back a lot, not only in money, but setup time and resources to figure out how to use those machines. And so, it takes a lot of thought to make sure, is this the right time for this machine? I think so. It makes sense for this project, but you have to think about all of the downstream effects of something like a big purchase like that. Do we have enough business to keep that machine running all the time? Do we need it? There's lots of thoughts there.
And now you're doing all sorts of stuff, all sorts of different sizes, all sorts of different industries. Did you think that you'd get to this stage by now in terms of diversity of industries and products and things?
No, honestly, we were hopeful. that we would. But we have been super, super fortunate through word of mouth and people connections from customer to customer. And honestly, I think a lot of it was us saying yes for so many years of like, yeah, we'll just figure out how to do this.
The like growth that you're experiencing right now and continue to experience, like were there obviously doing a great job and having a lot of really good customer service. Those are all, fairly standard things. Were there any things that you realized or learned that were contrarian or that people told you don't do or that's the wrong thing to do? Or is anyone saying don't say yes to so many of these projects? You're not gonna like make any money like this. This isn't how you run a business. Like, what were the things that felt wrong to other people but ended up being really important to you as a company?
I think some of the like large purchases that we did of the CNC machines, and the, like you said, the taking on of just anything. So as I mentioned before, my family owns a production boat manufacturing company. And my dad has been in that industry for many, many, many years. And he was always like, well, why don't you want to make your own product? Like, okay, well, we're making our own product, these wallets, and I can see that you make more money making your own thing because you don't have to wholesale it to somebody to mark it up and
Right.
whatnot. And so we were a little bit stubborn in doing those things and taking on other people's products and these custom one-off things because it didn't make money right off the bat. It wasn't something that was going to be super profitable. But because we did that, it led to us being able to have production and earn the trust of those companies that have led to, new customers and word of mouth and people really recognizing that we do know what we're doing and we can do it. And it led to that transition. So I don't know how many times I have been told over the years, like, why are you doing that? You're working too hard. You shouldn't be doing that. It's like, oh no, it's absolutely necessary. And we're only here because of all the hard work that we put in. And because we said yes to all of these different things that led to where we are now. And yeah, sometimes it's hard to make those choices, but in the end, you kind of have to do what you have to do to get to the next step. And yeah, it's sort of been trial and error and figuring things out. And as I mentioned, the composites industry is very closed-lipped. So we had lots of people come in like, oh, that's how you're doing that? Like, yes, absolutely. That's how we're doing that. Like, you don't know what you're doing. Like, we've figured this process out. And now we're, some of the best manufacturers of infused parts in the world. Like, we just figured it out and use things that people hadn't used before or had used it in this other application. And it's like, well, why not? I'm like, oh, well, you're just not supposed to. Like, why aren't you supposed to? I don't know. Well, I'm just going to do it. And then, yeah, okay, cool. That worked out. And, yeah, I think it's been a fun journey of discovery for us as individuals and as a company and as an industry of just how far you can push things. And that's what's gotten us to here.
If there is something about this composites industry that that you wish everybody knew that most people don't, what would that be? Like, is there some internal secret or something about what you do and the stuff that you make that you just wish everyone knew?
I wish that everyone knew there was multiple ways to do the same thing. I feel like all of our customers reach out having talked to other composite companies that only do one thing. That, oh, we're the fiberglass shop. Oh, we're the pre-preg shop. Oh, we're the metal tooling shop. And there's so many ways to do the same thing, and being able to open your eyes and like see that you don't have to do it that way. I think the industry having its roots in aerospace, there is one way to do things, and it has to be that way for safety and whatnot. But there so many ways to process carbon fiber, and that's what's so cool about it, is that you don't have to just do it that way. There's so many applications that you just need to try. So yeah, I think I think just having an open mind to composites and how you can make things to not get yourself just stuck in one way of thinking that the industry has been and still is very much in that mode of thought.
Let's say you can't control the closed door nature of the industry.
Yeah.
What's one other thing that you would change that you think would just massively increase the scope and size of what you're doing as an industry in general?
I think education of individuals, not within the industry, but just making carbon fiber more of a known word that I would imagine at least 25% of people have never heard that word before. We often talk to new friends or new acquaintances and like, oh, we do carbon fiber manufacturing. Oh, what's carbon fiber? And we spend a lot of time educating our customers as to why it's expensive, why there are limitations to the material. And so just kind of more widely having a basic understanding of what carbon fiber is and how you can use it would tremendously help the industry as a whole.
Do you think there are a huge number of components and parts that probably should be engineered for carbon fiber that just aren't because people don't know then?
I think that there are parts that are already transitioning to carbon fiber. I wouldn't necessarily say that something's lacking, but I think the cost still is prohibitive for a lot of manufacturing. I mean, even huge automotive OEMs, like, yeah, it'd be great if we could reduce the weight of, your Prius by 10% by converting everything to carbon fiber, the doors, like all the body panels. But it's still just expensive. And so you're trading cost for weight, but weight also equals efficiency. Mm-hmm. So I think that is where we'll continue to see expansion of carbon fiber, but I wouldn't say anything's like lacking because it's not carbon fiber already. I think things will just be improved the more that we can use it.
How much of the work that you're doing from an engineering standpoint is in figuring out ways to manufacture things cheaper so you're opening up new markets in the work that you're doing?
In general, making things out of carbon fiber will never be cheaper. You're using it for some other benefit. I guess in the end, something that lasts longer could be cheaper.
Sure.
But the upfront cost is going to be more. It's going to last longer. It's going to be stronger. It's going to be more lightweight. Like all of the other benefits to it, in the end, could lead to it being cheaper or something else being tertiarily,
So to some extent, the end user needs to understand the benefit of it so that they're more willing to pay a higher price for that item,
right,
which then will have more people use it in their componentry.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of carbon fiber parts right now, if you see them on a car or whatever, are more for look than performance. And that's been a trend, at least in the customers that we have, of we need carbon fiber that looks pretty and performs. And that is changing very much into we want the performance of it. And I think that is the recognition of the industry and the consumers that there are more benefits. So I see that we're trending towards being more educated in what carbon fiber can do and being willing to spend more upfront on parts that are made out of carbon fiber. But I think that, you need to understand all of the reasons why it is benefiting you when you look at the price tag of like, oh, and then also an education in why not only are the materials expensive, but it's a lot of work to make something out of carbon fiber. Like there's a lot of labor and hand time that you just can't get rid of. You have to lay the material into the mold, which is a person, that we're not at a point of, at least at our level of business, and most of the smaller composite shops, they don't have fiber laying machines like Boeing does, or it's a robot that can put your carbon fiber in there. So there's just a lot of labor time that you just can't get rid of. You can get more efficient at it, but it's always going to be there, versus throwing a chunk of aluminum into a CNC over and over again, and this machine just pumps it out for you. So there's an education there too. And we have clubs all the time come through our shop. It's like everyone leaves and like, wow, okay, I understand why. Like every step of the way, there's someone doing something. It's, yes, our CNC might trim the parts for us, but you have to clean them up and paint them and put them together. And there's a lot of education involved in the whole process of why to use carbon fiber, but also why it costs so much.
A lot of the folks that we work with have said for a long time that there's labor hiring challenges. Do you have that as well? Is training difficult? Is finding people difficult? Or what is it like in the work that you do?
People are always the hardest part of owning a small business. I think that there's been ebbs and flows in hiring and availability of people. Most of our team had no composites experience before joining Common Fibers. And so we have done a lot to train people in what carbon fiber is and how to do things. So we typically look for people who, have 3D printers and like to build things and are car enthusiasts, because then they at least kind of understand what it is. And I think we're finding now that we're more well-known and can compete with the bigger, Boeings and composite companies, that we can get people who are trained. But I feel like the labor market has just really been a struggle for the last 5 or 6 years to just find anybody who wants to work and be working and stay working and show up and like all of the basic working things. And I hope that changes, but I don't know. I'm not sure what the future holds for all of us in hiring.
So you have a unique perspective in that you grew up in a manufacturing business, basically. You saw how that worked. You learned about molds, and now you have your own business. What's changed over the 20, 30 years of exposure you've had to manufacturing? Most people don't have that.
I think the use of automation and technology has definitely, obviously, changed over the last 20 and 30 years. I would say that, the family boat company is still doing things basically the same way that they have been for 30 years. And whether that's stubbornness or there isn't the cost benefit of some new technology for them, that they're just still doing the same things. For us, whether that's generationally or the industry that we're in, are constantly changing things and figuring out new ways of doing things. And, for us, one of the biggest aha moments for Common Fibers was how to trim parts on our CNC. That we don't have a robot, but we have a CNC, and how to hold parts to the table and vacuum trim fixtures. And we used to hand trim everything. And so figuring out how to use the same machine that we've been making plugs off of for years to do other things, as well as just material advancements. Okay, we need something that can do this. Well, there never was an option before now, and there's a company that happens to be making this new thing that we'll get a sample of and see if we can figure it out. And always looking for those things has led to a lot of transitions for us as a company and the materials and the processes that we use, but we're always on the lookout for it. Versus, I feel like yeah, there's a lot of manufacturing industries that this is how we do it, and the CNC is going to do the same thing. And there's a lot of upgrades and efficiencies in new machines, being able to do things faster, and bits being sharper and lasting longer. And but I think they're smaller incremental changes over 30 years, whereas for us, the industry has grown more in the last 30 years than it did the 30 years prior. So there's a lot of bigger advancements and changes than other industries.
What do you think it would, like if you put yourself in your family business, how would you introduce that same adaptability or change to that company?
I mean, I feel like for me, I would first dive into, are there just basic process improvements that they can do with their current set of skill sets or machines? And then looking at new processes. So instead of hand laying up a boat hull, can you infuse it like we do at our shop, which can be safer or stronger or faster.
And because you know it's possible, you're probably more accurately assessing the risk of doing something like that. So you're more likely to do it.
One, yes, absolutely. And I think also that we could have started Common Fibers doing those same things, but because I had already seen those and knew of that, it's like, okay, how do we do it better? And so, yeah, I can definitely look into their business or other businesses and be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm glad that we started 10 years ahead of where you're at right now, and being able to apply that backwards.
Well, one back in time cheat, what would you tell yourself 10 years ago that you think would make the most impactful difference today?
I think it would be based around people and employees and building a very strong base team. That it's taken a lot of years for us to build a good team.
Did you not think it was as important before? Or you didn't think it was possible?
I think we were okay with just brute forcing things along. That like, okay, we can't find a person that's really good at this. We'll figure out how to become really good at that and then show somebody else how to do it. And I don't know if that was always the right way to look at it, that, you know, it could have benefited us. I don't know if it would have, but to find somebody who already knew more about business or composites or whatever it might be, woodworking, I don't know. But at the same time, I don't think we would have learned as much as we did had we done that. So I don't know. There's a trade-off, I guess. Yeah.
And going forward, what do you think the biggest things that are going to change about Common Fibers is going over the next 10 years?
I think there's continual material development, obviously, process development, machinery that's coming out. But I think for us internally as a team, it will be more related to process and quality and tracking and being consistent and repeatable. That it's really easy, maybe not really easy, but it's easier to make one of something than it is to make 100 exactly the same things. And we're in that transition now of we need to make 100 of these cars or these airplane parts that are identical. And figuring out how to do that in a way that isn't overly bureaucratic and slow and tedious. And that's where we are spending a lot of time right now, like diving into of finding what is truly critical and needed to be able to do that without feeling like we're slowing down as a company. Because really it's us speeding up, but it feels like we're slowing down and people having to fill out paperwork and like making that more of an easy process. And I think that is where our focus is going to be able to, yes, do the one cool thing, but also do we're making 10,000 of this thing and it'll always be the same.
So trying to find frameworks instead of like rules or something.
Yeah, guidelines. I think there are certain processes that there is some freedom in how you do something. How does the carbon fiber conform when you put it into this mold? But once you figure it out that first time, then it is a rule. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's going to go in this direction the same way every single time. And not having that feel like it's a burden to our employees or customers with cost, right? Like, oh, you need all of this process control. Well, it adds a whole bunch of time and management and overhead that could be cost prohibitive. So if it just becomes a really natural, normal thing that we do all of the time and it's easy to do, then it doesn't cost more and we do feel more comfortable and that everything is the same.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming and having a great conversation.
Yeah.
Where can people contact you or find out more about your company?
Yeah. So we are on Instagram, Facebook, all of those social media sites, but www.commonfibers.com is where you can find out more about our fabrication and get merch if you would
buy a wallet if you want.
An original wallet by Common Fibers.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, congratulations on all your success and thank you again.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.